Thursday night football coming up tonight, and what a thrilling matchup it is indeed, as Washington is taking on the New York Giants. We're here to break things down from a betting perspective, also from a single game DFS perspective, and let you know what we are on for tonight and take your questions live on air. This is the FanDuel Live Q&A on the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter channels. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a senior writer and analyst for numberfire.com, joined here by Olivia Moody. You know Liv from Girls Who Bet every Wednesday night. She is here with us today to talk some Thursday night football. You of course know Liv from The Volume as well. Liv, welcome to the FanDuel Live Q&A. How are things going for you today?
Things are going good. You know, I kind of talked to you a little bit earlier before we jumped on here about this Thursday night football matchup is definitely not my favorite. However, we are going to find the diamond in the rough and figure it out. That's just what we do. It's our job. So, you know, nonetheless, I think I've cooked up a couple player props for tonight and have a bet that I like, but this is a tough one. This is definitely not my favorite Thursday night football matchup. I'm just being honest.
The good thing is we can still win some money. No matter how bad the matchup may be, we can still try to win some money. As always, no matter where you are watching, you can get your questions in for today. YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter. I see Savon is in the comment section already. Baseball coming up at 4:30 for today. So if you want to chat some baseball for, honestly, a worse slate than this game, I will tell you that. Farmer Valdez got scratched. Today. Yeah, it's not great. So we're going to talk about Houston pitching situation at 4:30. So stick around for that. Talk about the main slate. We're going to talk through Thursday night football for tonight. I see Dennis over in the Facebook chat is saying, hail to Washington. Okay. And he says, Heineke over 20 yards lock. Is that for the longest completion, Dennis? I'm not sure what that one is for, but we'll get back to these questions here in a bit. Jay is on the Giants, it appears. He says big blue there. Now, Liv, I want to talk to you because I think that a lot of the way you want to look at things from a betting perspective is deciding how you think this game will play out first, because a lot of that does dictate the way we view the game overall. So when you're looking at this game, what's kind of standing out to you? Like, are you viewing this as being a situation where you expect it to be low scoring? Are you expecting one team to dominate? What do you think here?
So initially, this total opened up at 46. And when I saw that, and then I heard about the QB situation with Heineke starting, I loved the under. The total has moved now to 40 in the FanDuel Sportsbook, which is pretty stinking low and makes me very nervous. So I do think we see a low scoring matchup here, but that 40 feels a little bit like a trap. I could see us, you know, losing by maybe 1, 2. I don't know. It just feels a little nerve-wracking for me to put any money on the total, but I do think we see a low scoring matchup. The reality is these two teams are pretty solid on defense, not so much on offense. So I think we just see a lot of great defense. That being said, Heineke, this is only his third career start. So there's a lot of just unknowns for me with this Washington football team. And I take full responsibility for the fact that I just don't watch them enough. I don't watch this team enough. I don't look at a Sunday slate and go, wow, I really want to watch the Washington football team. And that's just me being transparent and me being honest. So I don't want to say that I think that Heineke is going to have his third career start and absolutely crap the bed, because I don't know if that's true or not. However, I just don't know enough about him. It does make me nervous that it's his third career start. He is going up against a pretty solid Giants defense. Yeah. So that being said, there is one play that I liked because, again, staying away from that total. But I do think that because the pressure will be on Heineke a little bit, I like him to do a little less passing and a little more rushing. That being said, if you're comfortable with the line that he's sitting at for his rushing yards, you take that over. If you like that, if you think that the passing yards is too high, you take the under. I'm on the under for passing yards because I do think he's going to be rushing a bit more. Not sure how much, so I don't want to take the over on his rushing yards. But I do think we see him rushing more than passing this game. So if you agree with me, I definitely think that there's some player props for Heineke that you can look at in the FanDuel Sportsbook.
So I'm of a similar mind with you when it comes to Heineke, and it's about Heineke, but it's also about, I think, the approach Washington will take to this game. And I think the question that I have to answer to myself first before I decide how to bet this game is, how do I view Taylor Heineke relative to Ryan Fitzpatrick? Because you know, that's going to dictate a lot of things here. Based on the line in this game, it does seem like FanDuel Sportsbook does view it as being a downgrade for Washington to have Taylor Heineke. Like, I have my numbers, and I can, like, manually update things based on injuries. I didn't change anything based on Heineke starting. Maybe that's a total flub on my part. Maybe I'm underestimating Ryan Fitzpatrick, but, like, I didn't change anything because I don't I didn't have a super high opinion of Fitzpatrick because oftentimes veteran journeymen are veteran journeymen for a reason. They're not sticking with the same team for a long time. So I had Washington's passing offense projected as being below average, and I've kept it there. Heinicke, in the times he has played, has been a tiny bit below average, but like in line with what I expect out of Fitzpatrick. So I actually kept things pretty even there. The difference for me is I'd expect Washington to be a bit more run heavy in this game. So Heinicke under 245.5. I think that is a definitely enticing one for me in terms of the straight up player props. I think that stands out, but also do you want to touch something that DJ had mentioned over on Facebook? He says Antonio Gibson is his MVP. Now, this is moving over to some DFS talk really briefly. He likes Antonio Gibson as his MVP. And DJ, I agree. I agree with that wholeheartedly. If I have a single entry lineup for this game, Antonio Gibson at MVP, I think is the way I'd want to go. It's not just because I do expect him to be a bit more conservative for this game, but it's also because Antonio Gibson got outstanding usage in the first game this year because he had 20 carries and 5 targets, and that is a whole lot of chances, a whole lot of rushing volume. I don't expect there to be a lot of high-scoring fantasy guys in this game, so Gibson to me is a really solid option there. So to me, both things for DFS and for betting revolve around my assumption that Washington's offense may be a bit more conservative, might keep things on the ground a bit more. I find that all to be pretty enticing. So Liv is checking out the Heinicke under passing yards at 245.5. I think that is the right way of things to go. Check out some comments over here, over on YouTube, talking to Salvatore. Salvatore says that Daniel Jones is 4-0 versus Washington, 6 touchdowns and no picks. I know that's true, Salvatore. I get a little bit nervous about that, though, because our boy Danny Dimes loves coughing up some turnovers. And also that brings me to another bet I do like over here. Let's go over here and check out anytime touchdown score. This was plus 420 yesterday, and it is plus 480 today. Okay, so this one actually moved against me. But the Washington defense to score a touchdown is plus 480. And against Daniel Jones, I kind of don't hate it. I think that's the way I'm leaning here. So I don't know. I think that's the way I'm leaning, Liv, is I feel like this situation is, I don't see a big downgrade from Fitzpatrick to Heinicke, but I think it's a change in the way that they attack this game in being a bit more rush heavy than they would be otherwise.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I don't know Heinicke well enough to kind of determine if he's a downgrade per se, but I do agree that I think it just changes the way that they're going to approach this Thursday night football matchup. I actually do have another player prop on the other side, looking at the Giants here. Okay. One thing that I found interesting was that of the yards that Washington allowed to the Chargers in week 1, 78% of them were passing yards. So I'm trying to think, okay, which receivers do I like on this Giants team to have a game? Well, Sterling Shepard is coming off of week 1 with 133 yards and a touchdown. So I kind of like him to be Daniel Jones' guy in this game. His over for receiving yards is what I'm looking at as another prop that I like, just because, again, I do think it's going to be primarily rushing in this one. But if there is passes going out, I like him to be the guy that's going to grab them because he's coming off of a really, really strong week 1. So I'm actually riding with his over in receiving yards as well as the under in passing for Heinicke.
And I think that makes sense too for Shepard because it's not just week 1. He did get awesome usage in week 1. You're right about that. But also camp reports were very good on Shepard. He was someone who a lot of people had written off once they took Kadarius Toney in the first round with the thought process of, okay, Shepard, I believe entering a contract year now. They're taking Toney to be like a replacement for him. They brought in Kenny Galladay, but Shepard still seemed to have a rapport with Daniel Jones. For me, if I'm looking at these receiving yardage props on the Giants side of things, Darius Slayton at 35.5 is interesting. I'm not sure I'd bet it there. I'd have to dig a bit more into it because I've not looked at this one yet, but I think 35.5 is interesting, mostly because Darius Slayton gets chunk targets. That's a weird term. I don't know if that's actually a thing, but like we'll call it chunk targets. He gets downfield looks, which means he can rack up yardage in a hurry. I find that a little bit intriguing. The problem I have, and the reason I'm not saying, oh, I want the over on this one, is you got to catch those. And that can sometimes be difficult when the quarterback is Daniel Jones. Again, no disrespect to him or anything, but, a little bit scary there. I see Dennis over on Facebook says he has Shepard also. I'm assuming this is the over on his yardage total. So Liv, Dennis on board with you for that one. Taking a look at some other More thoughts here. Salvatore says the Giants shut down Gibson last year. That is true, but it's also important to keep in mind that the workload for Gibson now is different than it was last year. The context, the situation around him is very different because at that time, Gibson did not have the role he currently has. And that is as a featured back in this offense that I do expect to be pretty run heavy. I think that we can, if we're talking about daily fantasy again, very briefly, if you want justification for going DJ's route and potentially having Antonio Gibson in your MVP slot, I think that what you look at is the anytime touchdown score odds. He is minus 105. Nobody else shorter than plus 150. So clearly among these skill position guys are expecting him to potentially be, find the paint, stuff like that. If we go with the rushing yards, Gibson is up at 70.5. And then the receiving yards, he's at 18.5. So like if you cobble those together, about 88 to 89 receiving yards. I think that this is a situation where when you add the workload together, I do think Antonio Gibson is pretty intriguing as far as an MVP when it comes to DFS. Dennis also says he has a Chase Young pick 6. That would go well with the Washington plus 480 anytime touchdown here. Now, Liv, I know you'd mentioned before we got on that you were interested in the same game parlay. And I always have difficulties with these. I'm going to leave this one to you. Was there one that stood out to you here with regards to the same game parlay for this game?
Yeah, so I'm taking those 2 player props that I've already talked about, and then I must hate myself because I'm riding with an under, and I don't know why I continue to do this, but unders are the worst thing to watch, like the worst, and it gives me anxiety every single time.
Yes.
For whatever reason, I still do it to myself. So I actually like the under for the team total for Washington. Again, okay. I think this is a low-scoring matchup. I am really struggling to pick a side in this one. So the bets that I picked were kind of my way of betting on this game without betting on this game, if that makes sense. I do think we see a low scoring matchup, and I liked Washington's line. I believe it was at 22.5, maybe 21.5. Yeah, 22.5. So I liked the under there. Again, I might regret that because unders are super, super horrible to watch. And most times I just have to turn the TV off because I'm like, I can't handle the anxiety anymore. But that, along with the 2 player props that I talked about, Sterling Shepard and Heineke under for his passing yards, that is the same game parlay I cooked up. So fingers crossed. Same game parlays are tough.
They are.
Great value when you can hit them, but when you don't, it's, it is what it is. This Thursday night football matchup, like I alluded to in the beginning, is just not the best. So we're just going to rock with it and keep our fingers crossed.
I think the key is to find bets that mesh well together. And, I think that, again, it goes back to what we were talking about before, where you want to find the way you think the game plays out. And I think that looking at these 3 together, they can correlate well because under 22.5 means you're expecting either a low scoring game or a slow game. And those are 2 things that set up well for Heineke under 245.5. So I would say that those 2 things correlate well together. The Shepard one independent of those, unless you think it's a shootout. So I would say that does blend pretty well together. And I think that does set up well. So if you're going to do a same game parlay, make sure they are bets that can coincide, that can coexist and stuff like that.
Yep.
And these are bets that can do that. Looking over to Facebook, Dennis says, Liv, I put my most money on your bets 2 hours ago, or your 2 bets 8 hours ago. So Dennis, already on the Liv side of things, we got some mesh here. That's good. It's good to hear.
Good, and also that always scares me. I'm like, oh my God, of course you put your money on my bets. Now I'm like nervous all day. Don't want to lose anyone money, but if you liked them enough to tail them, I love that.
He said 8 hours ago, so you're just on the same wavelength. It's not even like it's not your fault. You're good. You are on the same wavelength. That is good. Let's talk to Devin on YouTube. Devin says Daniel Jones, the best quarterback to come out of the draft since Marcus Mariota and Jared Goff. Devin, how dare you? Very rude to make fun of Jared Goff and Marcus Mariota. Devin is a good dude, but upset. We are now fighting, just to let you know, Devin. Also, Marcus injured his quad. So especially hurtfully bring up my boy Marcus right now.
How dare you?
Yeah, just rude across the board, Devin. DJ said, should a kicker go in the DFS for this game? So DJ, what I would say for that is, it depends on how you think the game plays out. I'm sorry to keep going back to that phrase, but it really does dictate everything when it comes to player props, when it comes to single game, because you want to decide how this game plays out. So let's say, DJ, you have Antonio Gibson in your MVP slot. That to me says that you don't expect Taylor Heineke to put the ball in the end zone all that often. So what that says is you should be okay skewing towards a kicker. And it also says to me that you think that Washington will get a lead here. And the way to think about kickers, DJ, is first of all, don't put him in your MVP. But second of all, you want to use kickers in situations where you think that team has the game flow in hand, because teams don't settle for field goals when they're down big. So if you think Washington gets a lead via Antonio Gibson or whatever it may be, and you think they get a lead, can allow themselves to kind of dictate the way this game goes, that's a situation where the kicker makes sense. I will say, though, the flip side is also true. Like, if you think the Giants handle it, then a kicker makes sense there. Other thing that I'd mention, DJ, with regard to just kicking or thinking about kickers in general, is quarterbacks and kickers can cannibalize each other, because quarterbacks are very touchdown dependent for daily fantasy. Kickers are field goal dependent, and those can be antithetical a lot of times. So a situation like the one you said, DJ, where you've got Antonio Gibson at MVP, I do think a kicker makes sense there. So just kind of, ask yourself how it plays out. Ask yourself if the kicker meshes with that projected game flow, and go from there. Kyle on YouTube says, are we staying away from Saquon for tonight? I am. I'll mention that right away. Very wary of this, but Liv, I want to talk to you. Let's check out some numbers here for Saquon Barkley. The rushing prop is at 40.5. That is down from 48.5. So that has been shooting down. And there is, I don't think it's a receiving prop. Yeah, no receiving prop on Saquon Barkley. So the rushing prop has gone down to 40.5. I feel like that has taken away any value that there may have been previously on this number. What do you think about Saquon Barkley for tonight from a props perspective?
Again, I think we both agree that this is going to be a pretty rush-heavy game. It's just a matter of...
will he be that guy getting those rushes? Yeah.
Which again, hello, welcome to gambling. I pretty much just pointed out what everyone is like, the obvious, but
right.
It's with the matchup like this, I'm too nervous for a guy like Saquon, put my money. Now, when the line movement's also a little interesting to me and kind of raises a question like, I wonder why the line moved all the way down to 40.5.
That's a big move. Yeah.
That's a big move. So that kind of right there, I'm all about looking at bizarre or strange line movement. And typically what my brain does when I see weird line movement is it just says stay away. Yeah. So in this situation, personally, if it went from 48.5 to 40.5, something's up and I don't know about it and I'm just staying away. That would be my personal approach on this, just because I think line movement is very telling in the world of sports gambling, and that's a lot. That's a big drop from 48.5 to 40.5. So that is
a drop of 17%. I'm trying to do math in my head, which was a disastrous decision on my part. Trying to do math in my head on the fly. I think it's like 17%, but it's a big move. And I think that, you see that line movement and it tells you, don't chase that steam. It tells you should have gotten in before. If you didn't get in before, don't get in now. I think that's the way I view that there with Saquon Barkley. That's not always the case. Like, there are situations where there can be lingering value. I don't think that's true with Saquon Barkley at 40.5. DJ says Heineke will be on the bench drinking Heineken after the first half. Are you saying they're going to move to Kyle Allen? Oh boy, DJ, that could be pretty rough. That wouldn't be good for your Antonio Gibson MVP lineup. We want Washington to at least be competent to keep him in the game. So for your Gibson MVP lineup, I am hoping that does not happen. Dennis says Washington football team 49-3. Okay, so that's Dennis is heavy on the football team for tonight. Oh, halftime lead is what Dennis is saying. Okay, so little aggressive there, Dennis. I like the enthusiasm, though. I like it.
That's a big, I don't know if I agree with that one, but.
Yeah, that's aggressive. DJ is asking McLaurin or Galladay for 50-plus yards. So this one can relate to both DFS and single game some betting. So let's go over here and check out the DFS side of things first. We have got Terry McLaurin at $12,000, and we have Kenny Galladay at $10,500. Check out Galladay's usage in the first game here. 6 targets for 64 yards. That was a game where they were down pretty big halftime to Liv's Denver Broncos. Are you a Broncos fan or you just live in Colorado?
Of course I'm a Broncos fan. And Teddy Bridgewater, my boy, his freaking game 1 was awesome. I was stoked. Yes, I'm a big Broncos girl.
I was hoping that no one remembered that I said to bet the Broncos under at 8.5. So let's just hope that everyone has been brainwashed and does not remember that happening, because that did not go well. I also bet the Giants money line with last week. That went great.
How dare you?
I know.
How dare you? No, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you, though. The beginning of that game, I was nervous. I was like, okay, neither of these teams are really showing up right now. And what's crazy is I wasn't even worried about Teddy. It was his receivers. It was like dropped passes that should not have been dropped. I was like, oh my God, you guys get it together. But thankfully, they pulled it off, but yeah, wow.
The only thing I can say in my defense is that I bet it before Teddy won the job. So
there you go. Hey, then I'm not mad.
That does not make it a good bet. It was still a bad bet on my part, but maybe it was less bad if we assume. Less
bad for sure.
I thought it would be lock, and I love Teddy too.
In that
so I was
case,
okay
I
being
would have taken the under for the wins as well. So I don't.
Right, exactly. So. Bad job by me, but either way, going back here to McLaurin and Galladay, I think the good thing for McLaurin, DJ, is that there's less competition for targets there with Curtis Samuel being out, but I just don't have a lot of faith in the way, like from a single game perspective, the way I expect them to tackle this game. Maybe because Heineke played decently well last year during the playoffs, they have enough faith to air it out. I just don't think that's how I would play things personally if I had my my backup quarterback in there and stuff like that. So a little bit nervous about that. And I would say, DJ, if like the number you've got is 50.5, I would stay away for both of them. I don't feel any inclination towards that. Let's go over here to the receiving props and see what those numbers actually. I think Galladay's at 53.5. He's at 53.5, and McLaurin is at 69.5. Liv, any inclination for you towards them? I think both those numbers are pretty fair. What about you?
Yes. And so just based off of that right there, again, Vegas is dangerously accurate for whatever reason. They always seem to know exactly how things are going to play out. So in this situation, to the question of McLaurin or Galladay, based on where the lines are sitting, I'd probably go McLaurin. Because Vegas is pretty accurate for the most part, and having him at 69.5 definitely makes me feel good about having him. If you're asking about the comparison of McLaurin over Galladay, I would take McLaurin.
So wheels up on F1, Terry McLaurin there. DJ says, hey, at least Cortland Sutton didn't get hurt this time. Also deep cuts here, deep wounds. Really killed a dynasty league last year. Also great to see him back and looking pretty good, I thought, in that first game. DJ is asking, should Logan Thomas be on the DFS radar? Don't mind that. Let me see what his salary is for today. He is $10,000. I would rather use Thomas and McLaurin at their respective salary, especially because I feel like, I think Thomas may have had a good rapport with Heineke during the late stretch run last year. I could be incorrect about that, but I'm pretty sure they did. But Thomas, he'll be out there every snap. Doesn't the same yardage upside as McLaurin does, but I do still think, I think that Thomas at $10,000 does grade out pretty well. Let's go back over here to check out the player props and see if there's anything else. One thing that you'd mentioned, Liv, was that you don't have a lot of faith in Daniel Jones not turning over the football. So we do have some interception props over here. Let's see what the number is on Daniel Jones. I'm on the wrong tab. That's why. Okay. It would help if I knew how to use the site that we're talking about here. But
the site that you pretty much live on every single day.
This site also, I'm wearing my FanDuel shirt. Like, you'd think I would know how to work my way around here, but let's go down here. Okay. So Daniel Jones is minus 188 to throw a pick. I'm not going to ask you about that number. Minus 188 is a long number. Any interest in plus 140 for Daniel Jones to not throw a pick tonight?
A little bit of interest, just considering his record up against this Washington team and the fact that he has, I think someone in the chat said 6 touchdowns and no picks up against Washington. So just based off of that trend alone, because I would never lay money on minus 180. I mean, that's just, there's no value to me there. Based off of the trends of Daniel Jones up against this team, then that plus 140 does look a little enticing just because, I mean, it's plus money. Of course it looks enticing, but based off of the trends and the way he performs up against this team, and then having, just the question mark of the quarterback, and we don't know how this Washington team is going to go about this one just because their circumstances are different. The plus 140 definitely entices me.
Yeah, I think if we get a fumble prop like John Sheeran of FanDuel Sportsbook, if this somehow reaches you, if we get a fumble prop on Daniel Jones,
there we go.
Let me know. I'll be in. Heavy interest on the over, whatever it may be. We had a question about kickers earlier from DJ. Brandon, my colleague Brandon Gadula, says he did a research on single game slates last year. and 58% of optimals had at least one kicker compared to 37% of all overall one-game slates. So lower scoring games, DJ, it does sound like those are more inclined to have a kicker in them. So it does go back to what I said before, with Washington, if you want to go Gibson at MVP, I do think that it does set up well to go with a kicker there. Dennis says Jones will throw a pick. So Dennis is on over one pick for Daniel Jones for tonight. Now, Liv, the main focus here was the Thursday night game, but also, hey, we've got you here. So before we let you go, any interest for you, other stuff for Sunday on the potentially more fun games before we send you off?
Yeah, I've got a couple picks. I can just kind of briefly run through them, and I obviously will post a little bit more about them as we get closer to Sunday, just because you guys know you're bettors that the lines will move and things will change, and we may have a late scratch and things just happen. So I'm prepared for whatever. But for now, I do like a total in this week, and it's an over, thank goodness, so that I don't have to put out an under this week. I like the over 50.5 in the Eagles 49ers game. Both teams were very highly offensive, not so hot on defense. I kind of have this phrase right now. Are the Eagles good, or were the Falcons just really bad? So I guess this will be a true testament to that. But I do think very, very high offensive matchup between these two. The 49ers had 41 points, and the Eagles had 32, and the 49ers allowed 33 to the Lions. So I think we just see a lack of defense and lots of scoring. So I like the over in that one. I also am still riding hot with the Cardinals. I said it a while ago that I was Cardinals +3, and I had quite a few people upset about that. They did not like the Cardinals up against the Titans, but I have been hot on this team since the beginning, so I'm riding with them again, -3.5 up against the Vikings. I'm not worried about them up against a team that lost to the Bengals. I'm just not. Kyler Murray looked incredible. Chandler Jones on defense. I just love this team a lot right now. So that's another pick. And then I have Girls Who Bet, Aaron K. Dolan and I, we have a bet together, and that is the Chiefs -3.5. They are healthy. The Ravens are not. And John Harbaugh, I think his record is 1-4 coming off of a loss on Monday Night Football. So do with that trend what you will. But again, an injured roster compared to a healthy Chiefs roster who played very well against the Browns in week 1. It's just hard for me to not want to take Chiefs with the spread. So those are some of the bets I'm rocking with on Sunday, and we'll see. Things happen. But I will be posting a video tomorrow as well with some more player props for the Sunday slate. So
once they get posted, nice. Okay, very good. And Girls Who Bet you can find up on the FanDuel YouTube page. If you missed it last night with Liv and Aaron, that is now posted every Wednesday night at 8:30 is when they go live on the FanDuel YouTube page, talking about that upcoming slate of games. Check that out there, because two very smart people, and you want to hear what they have to say. Liv, where can people find the rest of your stuff as you get set for the weekend?
Twitter at Liv Moods, Instagram at Liv Moods, and then I'll be on the FanDuel YouTube here and there, and then also the Volume Sports Instagram. I'm going live tonight actually with Aaron. We'll be talking about the Thursday night football game a little bit more and answering questions and things like that. So at Liv Moods on just about everything.
Awesome. Well, Liv, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Check out Liv on Twitter at Liv Moods. Good luck to you tonight, and better luck to you on Sunday for the more fun games. We appreciate you swinging by for today.
Thank you.
All righty. That was a lot of fun talking to Liv about this Thursday night football game. Should be a lot of fun. If you have lingering questions about Thursday night football, feel free to put in the chat. I'm fine talking about them as we go along here, in part because the baseball slate kind of sucks, everyone. Sorry to let you know, but it ain't great. As always, get your questions in no matter where you're watching. We'll take them via YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, or Twitter. Well, let's talk about some MLB DFS for today. And the key thing is something DJ just mentioned. Framber Valdez is out. Luis Garcia is in for Houston. So Jordan Montgomery is the top pitcher. Came up 10 minutes ago. I will say, DJ, I'm not sure Montgomery's actually the top guy. I had him number 2 tonight. Oh, geez, of course. Oh, wait, it's back signed in. How did that happen? I don't know how I signed in. I didn't do anything. Anyway, either way, I would say I'm not totally sure that Montgomery's the top guy. Part of the reason is I don't think Garcia's the worst option. I've got Diamondbacks there because Garcia's supposed to start tomorrow. He's facing the Rangers. Okay, so the numbers I have here are for the Rangers. I kind of think you could justify using Luis Garcia as your pitcher for tonight over Jordan Montgomery. The key issue with Garcia is he doesn't go deep in games. See here his past 5 pitch counts, 70, 90, 78, 80, 82. That's not ideal. And he's not going to go super deep into. Are you kidding me? Okay. Well, I'll pull this out of, I'll log back in here in a second. But I do think that the key thing is that Garcia doesn't go super deep into games. And that does worry me a bit with regards to his outlook for tonight, because we do need him to go deep in the game. I know that the scoring won't be super high. That is the one downside of using Luis Garcia for today, is how deep will he go into this game? I'm not really sure. The good thing is I feel pretty confident saying that Luis Garcia will be effective while he is in there. And that's not something I can say for most guys tonight. It's not something I can say with confidence for Jordan Montgomery, because, not everything is all rosy for Montgomery either. So I think that when I'm looking at this slate here, I do think that there are routes to Garcia being the highest scorer for tonight. So let's go over here and check out the salary for Garcia, $8,300. If you made me pick, DJ, between Luis Garcia and Jordan Montgomery, I feel like I'm going to go Luis Garcia. I know it's short notice for him and stuff like that. Like, that's kind of a bummer, but I do think that things are good enough where I can go. Let's pull up Garcia's game logs here and see how deep he goes in games in that low pitch count. 5 2/3, 5 6 2/3, 5 5 6. So he doesn't go super deep, but you can see here he still gets strikeouts. So DJ, I think I'm going to go with Luis Garcia, number one pitcher for tonight, because I know I have Montgomery 1 this morning, and I do feel like fine about that, but I think if I can put Garcia in there instead, I'm going to go Garcia. So it's Luis Garcia 1, Montgomery 2 for me for tonight. Dennis is asking, where does she say Primal Sports? It's the Volume Sports. It's Colin Cowherd's new site. So he has, I think it's a podcast service, and Liv does all of her podcasts over there. Does a lot of video work for them. So search for, I believe it's the Volume Sports on Twitter. That's where you can find Liv's work, and find Liv on Twitter at Liv Moods to find more of her stuff, but also Girls Who Bet every Wednesday, 8:30 with her and Eric K. Dolan here on the FanDuel YouTube page. Savon, best stack for single entry. Let's pull up the implied totals here to see which teams project to be a little bit popular. The Yankees are going to be popular. I can guarantee you that, just because their implied total is outrageously high, and it should be. I agree. They're a tremendous stack for today. If we're looking at these, I think the Phillies are pretty solid, facing Kyle Hendricks, not a team I'd expect people to go to in bunches necessarily, but Hendricks has really struggled recently. He has always been a guy who has feasted on his ability to get some ground balls, limit hard contact. He's still doing that to an extent. As you can see here, the hard hit rate allowed is 30% over his past 11 starts with fewer curveballs, but the results have shifted pretty heavily against him. So I'm not sure if it's a situation where the Cubs are like, okay, we don't want to burn you in a year where we're not doing anything. So we're going to have Kyle Hendricks kind of scale things back this year and try to make sure he can go to 2021 fresh, although I'm not sure how much I care about 2021 either. But with Hendricks, I'm kind of worried that they just aren't really going to push him right now. And that to me says the Phillies do grade out pretty well. So let's check out the Phillies lineup here to see if it is up yet. It is up yet. We got Odubel Herrera batting leadoff, Harper third, Didi fifth, Brad Miller seventh. Got a question about Freddie Galvis from Kyle over on YouTube, asking if Freddie Galvis is in play for tonight. I think he's in play, Kyle, as a one-off. The concern that I have is that he is batting eighth for a National League team, and that tends to lead to a pretty decent dip in production, because you're not going to see a lot of good pitches when the pitcher is batting behind you. So that's my concern with Freddie Galvis, is that because he's batting eighth for a National League team, he might be getting junk all night. So that'd be my issue there. And I think the thing with Galvis is he's also just a couple $100 lower than Didi. I'm guessing, Kyle, that you're asking this because you probably need the $300 to get between Galvis and Didi. So I think that if you need to do that, that's okay. You can go Galvis because he's a good hitter. He's been pretty good overall this year. I do like stacking this team. The one concern I would have, and it's a pretty decent concern, is that he's batting eighth in the National League Park. Let's go to DJ over on Facebook. Why exactly did the Orioles ground crew get ejected last night in the game against the Yankees? I think that they were out there in case it was raining, and the umpire didn't want them there as a distraction. So they didn't, if I read the situation correctly, they didn't actually get ejected. It was more so they got ushered off the field, like scurry, 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 go away. I think that was more of it than anything else. So it was funny. It was really funny to watch. They all ran off like looking really strange. It was actually quite fun, but don't think it was an actual ejection, unfortunately. I'd prefer if it works. That'd be a way better story. All right, Savant asking for a Chicago stack. Let's go over here. So the Cubs are facing a bullpen game for the Phillies. The Phillies bullpen is not great, as you can see here. The numbers look good relative to the rest of the slate, but A, it's a bad slate. B, bullpens are always going to look overvalued when you pull their full numbers because it's guys in their best state. Whereas for a bullpen game, it's guys in a stretched out state. So I think you can justify going at the Cubs here because they're facing a lot of middle relievers. We want access to middle relievers in daily fantasy. Let's pull up the lineup here for the Cubs. That's the one downside with them is it's not the best lineup by any means. And Wisdom's batting fifth. Schwindel, Ortega's been fine. So I think, the top five guys, I'm not sure why. The top five guys here are okay. I would not say they're my favorite stack. I would say the Yankees are higher. Phillies are higher. I like the Rays more against Tyler Alexander, even though Alexander's been better recently. So I do think that the Cubs can work, just not my favorite stack for today. DJ says Hendricks should have been traded too. I know DJ is, I think you're a Cubs fan, DJ. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, I mean, get what you can. I'm not sure how much they could have gotten for Hendricks given how things have gone this year. So, I mean, it would be nice to him to give him a shot at a team that might win. Bryant's on a fun team. Rizzo's on a fun team. Baez on a frustrating team, but at least had a playoff shot around the trade deadline. So I think for Hendricks' sake, I'd agree. Let him go somewhere where he might be able to pitch in October because that's not going to happen in Chicago. Savant says, I'm going to stack against the Yankees, going with Baltimore for today. Savant, I know. Okay, so earlier I mentioned that Jordan Montgomery might be the number 2 pitcher. I still think you have the leeway to stack the Orioles here despite that. That's how weird / bad of a slate this is. Montgomery, not infallible. He has a 21% strikeout rate across his past 6 starts with his velocity being down, high walk rate. He'll probably let up base runners. And the Orioles aren't bad, Savon. A 108 WRC plus against lefties, a 180 ISO, good park for hitting for tonight. So I don't mind that. I think that's totally fine because they've got guys who can hit. I want to see if Mancini is in the lineup. I know he got scratched last night. No Mancini. That's kind of a bummer, but Mullins can hit lefties. Mountcastle's great. Hayes is fine. Santander's fine. It's kind of a weaker lineup a little bit with no Mancini in there, but yeah, Savant, I think you can justify doing that pretty easily. So I think that is fine for me. Salvatore says, last night's slate gave me a little confidence again for a 2-team stack, just a little. I think especially for tonight, Salvatore, I think a 2-team stack is the way I would want to go. Because across just 4 games, if you go, let's say you do a 3-3-2 stack, 3 players on one team, 3 on another, 2 on another, basically what you're doing there is you're getting exposure to 38.7% of the teams in the slate, which means you're getting exposure to 38% of the pitchers. Not sure why I said that so fast. I'd rather have access to 25% of the pitchers in this slate. So yeah, tonight especially, 2-team stacks work. Last night was fun. We had the A's doing well. Cleveland did well at the end. It was weird because the slate started off so slow. My lineup's really bad until 9:15, somewhere around there. That's when the dingers started to flow. So it got good eventually, but I was pretty nervous there for a bit. Salvatore, glad it worked out for you as well. Savant says, I feel like Tampa Bay will go under the radar. I agree. I think that is a pretty likely scenario, and I do think that they grade out decently well for tonight. The reason they're not in my top 2 is because Alexander has gotten better recently, getting more strikeouts. This is over his past 6 outings with more sinkers, getting more strikeouts, keeping the ball on the ground a bit more, but still a 43% hard hit rate allowed. The Rays, with the addition of Nelson Cruz, a much better team versus lefties than they were earlier on this year. So I do think that the Rays are a team that might not be all that popular, but do grade out pretty well for tonight. We get Mike Zunino in there. It's a small slate. Zunino can go yard twice any slate he's on. So let's build out a Rays stack here. Why not? Let's just do it. Let's put Garcia in there, pitcher. Let's go Zunino. Whoopsies. Help if I spell it right. $3,300. Outrageous. It's fine. I don't want to go Yandy first. Let's go with Margot first. Let's get... Can I get to a Rosarena and Cruz? I probably can, given the Pitching salary, Rosarena and Cruz. 3,300 left. Sick. That's awesome. I want to make sure I'm not discounting Yandy, though, because Yandy has hit for more power in the second half than he did earlier on this year. So let me just double check on Yandy to make sure I'm not going to be unintentionally too low on him. Yandy is someone I refused to use earlier on this year because just wouldn't put the ball in the air. Fly ball rate against lefties up to 35%, though. That's interesting. That's a lot higher than it was. Let's go here to the game log. To me, that says he's probably kept at the gains we were talking about earlier on. Because we talked about Yandy about a month ago, I would guess, as being someone who was improving his batted ball data and becoming a bit more dangerous from a power perspective. 7% launch angle, or 7-degree launch angle compared to 6% for the full year. Barrel rate's 10% this time. Hard contact rate still high at 48%. That's all pretty good. I don't mind any of that. His ISO in this time, 139. So still not like the best ISO, but he's putting himself in better position to get extra base hits via what he's been doing from an isolated power perspective. So I do think that Yandy is at least interesting. Now, would I use him over Cruz or Rosarena? No, absolutely not. Would I use him over Zunino, despite the fact that Zunino is lower in the order? No, give me Zunino there as well. The question is, do you use Yandy over Margot? Margot against lefties, a 140 ISO, 34% fly ball rate. Yandy actually has a slightly higher fly ball rate. So maybe I should just go Yandy. Let's do it. I think these top three are just where I want to go. I know Zunino, like, he's over salary, but I don't care. I think he's great. For a 4-game slate where I want a dude who can win the slate by himself, give me Zunino. Salary's not a big consideration here. So yeah, let's do this. I think that this is a slightly preferred 4-player stack for me for the Rays over the one that included Margot. I do like Margot a lot. So, don't write him off, but I would say this might be my optimal 4-player stack for the Rays for tonight. Savon also thought that Tampa or Detroit might go under the radar. I think they will, but I also don't have a ton of interest in them because it sounds like Dietrich Enns is going to be the long boy out of the bullpen for the Rays tonight. They have an opener going, but Enns, the long boy, that's how you must call them. That is their technical term, the long boy. In the longer outings, Enns has had 28% strikeout rate, and that's only 5 outings, so it's a smaller sample. But if you look at the larger sample on Enns, of course, it goes to Rich Hill. Of course, I've never learned my lesson. But even the larger sample on Enns, if you include the time where he was not going as deep in games, he was still getting a lot of strikeouts. So I'm not super inclined to use batters facing Enns because he's been good this year. He has continued to be good when he's been getting stretched out and going deeper into games. He's facing a team that does struggle quite a bit with righties. So I'm okay, with lefties, I should say. I'm okay being a little bit lower on him there and not really being all that high on the Tigers for today. Kyle says, I can't get to Didi, decided between Galvis or Ramon Urias. I don't think either are a bad decision, Kyle. I would probably go with Urias because he's batting 5th in a good park, facing a guy we're okay targeting. I don't think either is wrong, though, Kyle. Urias has a little bit of power. Let me double check that, though, just to make sure I'm not, again, talking out my butt. Ramon Urias. All right. Let's go down here. Overall this year, 137 ISO. That's not great. But a 10% barrel rate, 42% hard hit rate. That's not bad. All right. So it would be a small sample. Let's check out Urias versus lefties, though. I know. Small samples. Against lefties, 5 of his 7 home runs are coming against lefties. That's interesting. He has a 38% career hard hit rate, a fly ball rate of 30%, so still pretty low, 26% strikeout rate. Kyle, I'd probably go with Urias. If it's the situation where like you're not stacking the Phillies and you're not stacking the Orioles, so neither guy really meshes with the stack, I would say go with Urias because straight up, I probably like him a bit more, but both are in play. I would say go Urias, but I don't mind either. So that's the way I'm viewing there. Savon, I'm stacking a little bit of everybody, even Texas. I guess the angle you could play with Texas is that, again, why did I not change this? Rangers. aim to play with them is that Garcia didn't know he was starting until today. I still wouldn't do it personally because they're not a good team. He's a good pitcher, so I wouldn't do that. But like, you could play that angle. I will not personally, though. DJ, can you build out a Tigers Philly stack with Garcia if possible? Let's build out the Philly stack with Garcia because it's a bit different than my typical Philly stack because I don't need to save salary. The problem is Phillies. Why did I search Phillies? That was so stupid. Okay, search Harper. There we go. It's different than my typical Philly stack because usually I'm stacking the Phillies to save salary, and I don't really need to do that here. Really help if I could type. Let's go Miller. Oh, let's go Realmuto. He's in there. That's why we can allocate more salary there. Let's get Didi in there, and let's put Odubel in there. I would say this is probably the 4-player stack I want in the Phillies. I don't mind going to Miller. Both like from a people go to Realmuto perspective, but also like I just think Miller's a good player. So I would say Miller is also an option here within these Philly stacks. I'm okay with that. Let's go over to Ends and check out some stuff with him for this Tiger stack. See what kind of contact profile he lets up. Okay. So Ends does let up a 49% fly ball rate. There you go. That's the way to use some Tigers here. But again, I'm not as high just because the strikeout rate is so high. But hypothetically, if you want to build out a Tiger stack, let's check out the lineup here for the Tigers. Grossman, sick. Scope, fine. Miguel Cabrera. I know he had that surge. Let's just see if he's kept that up. I know he had his 500th dinger, so maybe Cabrera's slowed things down since then. Maybe not, though. Let's go from August 15th on for Miguel and see what the batted ball profile looks like for him in that time. The reason I'm picking August 15th is because batted balls tend to stabilize around 60 to 80 balls in play, batted ball events. If I go back to August 15th, that's probably about 80, 66, close enough. In that time, a 52% hard hit rate. The launch angle is 9.3 degrees. That's actually not the worst. It's not the best either, but it's not the worst. Let's see what the ISO looks like for Miguel in that time. ISO is 161. Okay, that could be worse. You know, that's fine. Let's go over here. I want Haas in there. He gets dingers. We want dingers. Let's get some dingers in there. Put him in the outfield. Do I want Miguel? Let's put Scope in there first. Put him at second base, and let's put Grossman in there. Okay, so we do that. Got that. Okay, so then we're deciding between, do we want to go with Miguel? Do we want to go Candelario, Goodrum, Garneau? Let's go over here. Check out the Tigers' numbers versus lefties. Whoopsies, that's Cleveland. They are not on this slate, I don't think. Okay. And sort by plate appearances. If we do that, we got Candelario to 155 ISO. I believe that is increased recently. So that's enticing. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. So do you want to go Candelario or Miguel? Kind of want to go Candelario. Maybe that's dumb. Maybe it's not, though. Who can say? Candelario at third base. Let's put him there. I don't recommend making decisions based on game logs, but oh my goodness. Double dong recently for Heimer Candelario. It appears the increase in ISO that I was thinking was there has been there. So let's do this. This is a 4-player stack on the Tigers. Don't mind that one. Again, not going to be high on them because I respect Ends a lot and think that he'll do well even in a longer role, but, you know, that can work. So DJ's asking about Dustin Garneau because DJ, potentially on a site where catches are necessary, I'm on to your shtick here. The good thing is, on FanDuel DJ, not only do you not have to use a catcher, but Eric Haas is listed as a catcher. This is a catcher on like season-long leagues too. It was awesome before he got hurt. Racking up those dingers for my season-long team. Let's go to include this here for Garneau. Not a big sample for him. So, but he has been hit for power. I guess that's enticing enough. DJ, I would say you're not going to need to get there for the most part because you can use those guys with Garcia's salary being so low. I don't think salary be an object. I'd also say that Haas has a pretty low salary too. So DJ's looking at the last 4 games for Garneau and going from that angle. So kudos to you, DJ. You're on the right side. That's good. Good for you. Proud of you. I don't think I want to go there over Haas. Like, I could use both, but like, I feel like this stack is the stack I had before, because I cleared it out. Let's just, the Tiger stack I had in there before, I think was the right way to play things. So I won't be going Garneau because I don't think I have to, but like, he's had power, DJ. That's a path. So it's not out of play, but not a way I'm going to play things for today. Let's go back over here and check out. We have not talked about the Yankees. Let's check out the Yankees and see that lineup. That game is starting here pretty soon. Brett Gardner's leadoff. That's gross. Ew. Okay, let's build a Yankee stack here with that lineup and with Garcia in here. I'm going to put Stanton in there. We're going to put the Judge. I spelled it Udge. That's fine. Gallo and Rizzo. I can make that work because we got Didi. We've got Brad Miller. We've got a lot of stuff to save some salary. So I think we can make that work pretty easily. So I would say if you're okay going with some chalk, I think that Yankee stack grades out pretty well. I will say with regards to Garcia, as it pertains to roster rates and popularity, the good thing for him is that there will be like a natural cap on how popular he can be, because there are a lot of people who filled out lineups this morning and aren't going to go check them later on. Don't want to do the research on, him, given the change of pitcher. So I would say there is a natural ceiling to how popular Luis Garcia can get. And I think that does bode well for how we want to view him for today. So I would say that Garcia does work. I would say this Yankee stack works. You can, go with those two and feel pretty good. Salvatore, going back to football here, prophesizing a Sterling Shepard end around for a touchdown to go along with a receiving touchdown. So Salvatore is going bold. What odds do you want on that, Salvatore? Like 12 to 1? No, 12's too short. I would say 32 to 1 odds that Sterling Shepard has 2 touchdowns, specifically 1 rushing and 1 receiving. Shepard is, I think, good enough where you can see a situation where they decide to get the ball in his hands without Daniel Jones throwing it. That could be a good thing for him. So Salvatore, I like the boldness. I like the enthusiasm. I will say no, but I like the boldness. I think Shepard does work decently well for tonight. I would also say, again, Slayton is interesting for me with regards to those Giants pass catchers. DJ says a lot of rain for the Phillies and Yankees game. Let's go over here and check out what Dark Sky Weather is saying for this game. As always, make sure you trust Kevin Roth over me. I forgot to see what Roth said this morning. So let me pull it up over on the other computer because I don't want to occupy this other one. Okay, so Kevin Roth's report this morning says there is a flash flood watch. Yuck. That's not great. Okay, so check out to see what actually looks like he was already on this earlier on. So yeah, weather doesn't look good, DJ. I noticed that you're looking at him too. So that's a little concerning with regards to the Yankees stack. Hopefully that game is good to go though. Would like to stack the Yankees there. Final one from DJ saying my Jets finally going to upset the Patriots this weekend. DJ, here we go. Ready for this? James Chadwick Pennington. The spirit of James Chadwick Pennington is here to guide Zach Wilson and the New York Jets to victory. I'm not betting them. Just make that abundantly clear. But let's JETS, Jets, just for you, DJ. That is all the time that we have here for today on this FanDuel Live Q&A, but we are back once again tomorrow to close out the week. We have our snake draft with myself, JJ Zachariason, and Brandon Gadula. JJ won last week, so I got to catch up. Got to make up some ground in the snake draft. Tune in tomorrow at 4 p.m. for that. MLB will follow at 4:30 once again. So make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and Twitter pages. If you got more questions for me, I am on Twitter at JimSanis, JimSannes. If you want some more NFL DFS thoughts for week number 2, Brandon Gadula and I recorded our podcast this morning, the week 2 DFS preview. Find that by searching for the Number Fire Daily Fantasy Podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast. Big thank you to Olivia Moody for joining me earlier on. Find her on Twitter at Liv Moods, and check out Girls Who Bet on the FanDuel YouTube page every Wednesday at 8:30 with her and Aaron K. Dolan. Big thank you to Joy Affleck, our video producer, for running the video side of things here today. Thank you, Joy, and Kimchi for the assist as well. And thank you to everyone for tuning in. Good luck to you tonight. We'll talk to you once again tomorrow. This has been the FanDuel Live Q&A.